Adam Schefter. And if you're with us earlier in the program today, Schefter, you told us that last night's somewhat surprising loss by the Lions may have completely changed the way this year's coaching carousel works.
It's sped up the entire cycle because the teams that are looking for head coaches, the Saints, the Jets, the Bears, the Raiders, and the Jaguars, I don't think they were expecting the Commanders to win and for Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, the offensive and defensive coordinators of the Detroit Lions, to be in the mix, to be able to meet with teams starting tomorrow, and they can be hired as early as this week. And these two guys are expected to get head coaching jobs. I think with Ben Johnson, you're looking at the Las Vegas Raiders, the Chicago Bears, and the Jacksonville Jaguars, all square in the mix. And he's going to figure out, I think, this week where he wants to go. Aaron Glenn, square in the mix with the New Orleans Saints, the New York Jets, maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars, or the Raiders. Now you start to look for hints and clues about things that are happening. The Las Vegas Raiders today are interviewing the Commanders' assistant GM, Lance Newmark, who spent the previous 26 years in Detroit working with Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. The Raiders could look to move on Lance Newmark, but Tom Brady also likes John Spytek, the Buccaneers' assistant GM. We'll see how that plays out. These two are the dominoes that have to fall before the other head coaches start to get hired, and I would expect that to start happening this week.
So accelerate the process is what we're
Everything got
hearing.
accelerated.
In the meantime, I only see 5 logos down here. There are 6 openings right now. The Dallas Cowboys are the 6th. What are we looking at?
They are in their own little category because it doesn't seem right now like they're in on the other candidates. Now, they could always call about Aaron Glenn. We'll see if they do. But to date, they've spoken with Kellen Moore. They've spoken with Robert Saleh. Leslie Frazier's coming up tomorrow. Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders spoken. Everybody's waiting to see about Jason Witten. And Anthony Lynn has a history with the organization and is running the run game in Washington that has been so effective. So the Dallas Cowboys, I think, are moving at their own pace, in their own universe, doing what they do. And we wait to see where that brings them. But it feels like the other 5 teams are in on the Lions coordinators and the Cowboys are operating in their own universe.
Well, and obviously everyone is paying close attention to the Deion of it all. That's the one that stands out in all of this. He is a candidate quite unlike any of the other candidates that are available in this cycle. So should we dive into that? Alex, out of all of the candidates that we just heard involved in the Cowboys coaching search, which is the one that makes sense to you?
I mean, believe it or not, I think it's Deion, to be honest. I mean, listen, being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys is such a unique position to be in. And to hire a first-time head coach that isn't ready for that spotlight, I think is a mistake, right? I love Kellen Moore, but I don't know if he steps in right now. Jason Witten, I don't know if that's right. I mean, in some ways, obviously the history here with the Dallas Cowboys, Deion knows this culture. But I think, listen, he has such a presence as a head coach, right? I think he casts such a big shadow. In some ways, I think he protects this Dallas Cowboy locker room, right, that is so affected by this spotlight sometimes, right? They've had great regular seasons. Then when the stage gets bigger, we've seen him not perform. I think Deion, in some ways, there's brilliance to what he does, and that he takes a lot of that on and kind of lets his players, focus on football, right?
Yeah,
also, they should be.
Yeah, I mean, also, so that's the same along the lines as Jason Witten in terms of a former player that has a relationship with the owner that can translate it down to the players. I mean, is there Deion even been interviewed? Is this?
He doesn't need to interview Jerry.
Yeah, that's what.
I think
that's
Jerry's got to decide, you know
right.
what, this is the direction I want to go. And then Deion would have to decide if that's the direction he wants to go. And I think Jerry would be out front leading the charge to go get Deion. And it's not like it's a primary purpose right at the outset right here. Like, they're going to wait on that one, do their process. And at some point in time, you just wait to see if Deion can just jump right in there if Jerry decides to go that route.
I'm just thinking about players, and I think Deion would be great for Micah.
Connect,
in terms of Micah, in terms of what, how you talk the talk and also walk the walk. You know what I mean? In terms of, like, Micah's said some things, and you're getting into areas where you're talking other players' contracts and top 5 lists on quarterbacks, all of this stuff. And Deion started it all in terms of, challenging teammates, talking through the media, challenging his team, his whole entire organization, talking trash the right way. Yep. I think Micah needs a force like Deion to help him progress.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would love for Deion to get a job here. He'd obviously have to bring in NFL assistant coaches and change up, the guys that he has in his current staff and things. But, I mean, nobody's going to sit back and look at, really? Like, what do you know? No, he's one of the greatest players in the history of our game, so they're going to have that natural respect. Watch out for Anthony Lynn. And I'm going to tell you, Anthony Lynn is a way better football coach than maybe people give him credit for. He did a really good job with the Chargers, and I think people forget that as a winning record as a head coach with the Chargers. And I'm just telling you, Jerry is going to be comfortable with him. He's been in that organization for a while. I think that's important. Anthony would know what he's getting into, and he is a dang leader of men. Some of these other guys I'm not so shot in the you-know-what with, but Anthony Lynn, I think, makes perfect sense here. He's an outstanding coach. I had the opportunity. He was with me for several years. I think he's one of the finest coaches in the NFL. We see the difference with that football team. It's not just Cliff Kingsbury, Anthony Lynn in charge of that run game. And believe me, they will play hard for Anthony Lynn.
Yeah, experienced. I think the last thing on Deion is, listen, I think when you get beyond a lot of the stuff and the PR moves, Deion's an old school coach, right? Like the things that he's about. And I think he would put together a professional staff. And again, I do think he could step in and connect with these players. And we know from a business perspective, this would be must-see TV.
By the way, it would be a continuation also. We see Mike Vrabel going back to New England. We see Aaron Glenn in play in New York where he played, and some of these places. And D'Amico Ryans is in Houston, another guy. So that would just be a continuation. Dan Campbell in Detroit. There seems to be a little bit of a trend of the player-coach going back to a franchise, and Deion would continue that. He'd be awesome. He'd be awesome.
I think we're seeing a lot of things. It's now more important to get leadership. Like that's where it should be. That's who the head coach should be. And to me, I think we're seeing that trend also more than just a hot corner, even though Ben Johnson obviously comes to the top of that. But
the NFL coaching carousel is in full swing, and teams are making moves left and right. But while franchises like the Raiders, Bears, and Saints are aggressively searching for their next head coach, the Dallas Cowboys seem to be moving at their own pace, almost like they're playing by a different set of rules. Jerry Jones isn't rushing. He isn't scrambling for top candidates like the rest of the league. And that has everyone asking, what exactly is his plan? Could it be that he already has his? I set on someone, a name that isn't making the usual rounds? Someone like Deion Sanders. Think about it, this wouldn't be just another coaching hire. It would be a historic move, one that could shake the entire NFL. But would it actually work? Would Deion be the right fit for this team? Drop a yes or nitrogen monoxide in the comments, and let's see where Cowboys Nation stands on this. Alright, let's break this down. Why is Deion Sanders even in this conversation? Simple, he's prime time, one of the greatest Cowboys of all time, a larger-than-life figure, and most importantly, a leader who knows exactly how to handle the spotlight. That's what makes this idea so intriguing. Coaching the Dallas Cowboys isn't just about X's and O's, it's about managing the pressure, the expectations, the constant media circus that comes with America's team. And let's be real, Deion thrives in that environment. He wouldn't shy away from the attention. In fact, he'd take it head-on, freeing up the players to just focus on football. But here's the big question. Would the locker room buy in? Would guys like Micah Parsons rally behind him? Or would it be too much of a gamble? Vote in the poll. Would Deion Sanders be a good leader for the Cowboys? Yes or no? Now, let's talk about Micah Parsons. Because if there's one player who could benefit the most from Deion Sanders as head coach, it's him. Micah is already a superstar, but we've seen how his outspoken nature sometimes stirs things up, whether it's calling out teammates, ranking quarterbacks, or making bold statements in the media. Sound familiar? Yeah, because that's exactly the kind of attitude Deion had in his playing days. But the difference, Prime knew how to back it up and channel it into leadership. Imagine Deion mentoring Micah, teaching him how to handle the spotlight, use his voice the right way, and dominate on and off the field. That could be a game changer, but what do you think? Would Deion help Micah reach another level, or would it be too much personality in one locker room? Drop your take in the comments. Here's something the Cowboys desperately need: a real culture change. And if there's one thing Deion Sanders brings wherever he goes, it's a new mindset. Look at what he did at Colorado. He walked in and completely flipped the program upside down. New energy, new expectations, a whole new standard. And you better believe he'd do the same in Dallas. No more complacency, no more excuses, just accountability and a winning mentality. But here's where it gets tricky. Deion doesn't do things the traditional way. His coaching style is bold, unfiltered, and sometimes controversial. Would Jerry Jones be willing to give him the freedom to run things his way? Tricky Jerry Jones, because let's be honest, if Deion Sanders were to become head coach of the Cowboys, Jerry would have to be willing to give up some control. And that's not exactly his style. We've seen how Jerry operates. He wants a coach who listens, who follows the script, who doesn't overshadow him. That's why guys like Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy have lasted as long as they have. But Deion, he's his own brand, his own force of nature. He wouldn't just be the head coach, he'd be the face of the franchise, and that's where the real dilemma is. Would Jerry be willing to take a step back and let Deion run the show? Or would the power struggle be too much? What do you think? Would Jerry actually hire Deion, or is this just a fantasy? Vote in the poll. So after everything we've broken down, the passion, the leadership, the culture shift, and the Jerry Jones factor, does Deion Sanders make sense as the next Cowboys head coach? On one hand, he's exactly what this team needs. A leader who demands excellence, who wouldn't tolerate mediocrity, who knows what it takes to win in Dallas. He'd bring back the fire, the swagger, the belief that the Cowboys are the team to beat. But on the other hand, Jerry Jones runs this team his way. And unless he's willing to loosen his grip, Deion's strong personality could lead to a power struggle. So now it's your turn. Would you want Deion Sanders as the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys? Drop a yes or nitrogen monoxide in the comments, and let's see where the fans stand. And hey, if you're loving this type of content, make sure to subscribe. More Cowboys news coming your way.